It's time now to take a look at what else has been making headlines, and to do that we are joined this morning by Adjunct Associate Professor Ian Kemish, who is an author and former Australian diplomat. Ian Kemish, great to have you back on Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.
Great to see you, Jo. Hi, Fazia.
Let's start off with this article out of the AFR, and it's about Senator Penny Wong's speech in London, in which she spoke about her father's experience under British colonialism in Southeast Asia. And this article is saying that Penny Wong was making a diplomatic point in that speech. What was that point?
Well, I think if you had been relying on certain elements of the British and Australian media, you would have heard a message that Senator Wong went to London to rudely hit back at the British Empire and was slapped down in return by the British Foreign Secretary. Actually, as Rory Medcalf says very clearly, and as the speech makes very clear, Senator Wong was making a point that, like Australia, the United Kingdom has moved beyond its past, is a country that needs to and does deal honestly with its history and needs to address that history. It's changed as we have. It's become a multicultural nation, and the two countries together are talking about a very different kind of engagement with our region, the Indo-Pacific, one which is an engagement based on partnership, which is not colonial in attitude. These were the messages of the speech, and it's pretty clear if you've read it, as I have, and Rory Medcalf obviously has, that this was the case. Yes, she spoke about her own past and acknowledges that on one side of her ancestry, she has lineage which is, Chinese and which were effectively indentured labour as part of the British colonial experiment. But at the same time, she too has heritage on the other side, something she's clearly proud of, and clearly believes that the two countries can face into the region in a very different way to the, perhaps you might say, modern imperialism being displayed by others, and I mean China in this part of the world.
Yeah, I found it really interesting in that the article, Rory Medcalf basically said that this could be lessons for new would-be empires like the United States and China.
Exactly it. And look, I think he puts it really well when he speaks about linking an acknowledgement of the past on one hand with a relationship of deep strategic trust in securing the future. I think it's about learning the lessons, and it's about engaging in a modern, supportive way based on partnership. Yeah. That was clearly the message, and I'm still not sure why people have taken it differently.
Yeah. Let's move on into this article at ABC News about the Royal Commission into the robo-debt scheme. And this article talks about what that reveals or is revealing about the culture in some areas of the public service.
Yeah, this analysis by Laura really led me to reflect a bit on what the strengths of the public service can and should be, and what the dangers are when that culture is allowed to deteriorate. Now, I have no knowledge of the robo-debt issues, but I have been very interested in the testimony of public servants and ministers. And look, clearly there are some issues around ministerial responsibility, that age-old Westminster principle that if something happens in your portfolio as minister, you are accountable for it and need to face up to that. But with the public service itself, we're hearing testimony that, where people are blaming their subordinates, where people are denying knowledge, and really disturbing to me, where people are reporting that they were fearful of telling the truth. And it leaves you wondering what happened to courage. I think a bit about the principles that were drilled into me when I was a young public servant. Yes, ultimately, as a public servant, you must respect democracy. In other words, you have to respect that the government of the day is elected by the Australian people. They end up getting to decide what policy is, but it doesn't mean you can't and shouldn't argue a case behind closed doors with force if you feel out of principle you should. Certainly doesn't mean that you should break the law or stand idly by while others do.
Yeah.
And I hear sometimes people talking about their roles. It's rare, but occasionally I hear people talking about their roles as if their role in the public service is to make ministers happy. It's certainly not to do that. And I think that, while governments can contribute to a culture of confidence in the exchange between public service and the political level, public servants need to show some courage.
Yeah, indeed. But perhaps it's a case of just not wanting to speak up and wondering whether if you do speak up, you might actually lose your job or your position. Ian, there's so much to chat about that, but unfortunately we are running out of time. So we want to move on to our third article, and this one is out of the Sydney Morning Herald, and it's about a speech that Russia's leader Vladimir Putin made in the former Stalingrad, and he evoked Nazism, in his assurance that Russia will be victorious in their conflict with Ukraine. I wonder if this is just a bid to drum up more nationalism and support for Russia's efforts in the conflict.
It clearly is, Fauzia, and this is a real lesson in the dangers in when you have a leader able to manipulate a deep-seated national narrative. Putin was speaking in Volgograd 80 years on from a major anniversary, the anniversary of when Soviet forces defeated Nazi German forces in a long, bitter urban battle, regarded by historians as the real turning point of the Second World War, clearly integral to the Russian sense of self and certainly Putin's sense of where Russia is. But look, it seems pretty clear, doesn't it, that if you're assigning movie roles, modern Russia is playing the role of Nazi Germany in the modern movie, and the defenders of Ukraine are closer to the spirit of the defenders of Stalingrad than anybody else. This is a role reversal, and for this deep-seated, strongly felt national narrative to be manipulated in this way really is very disturbing. Clearly there's some resonance for it in Russia, and I think as observers and people who are concerned about the world, we need to understand that and take it seriously. But this is manipulation. This is propaganda in its pure form by a out-and-out autocrat, and it needs to be called out.
Yeah, I think manipulation and propaganda, those are absolutely the two words linked with Russia's leader, Vladimir Putin, today. Thank you so much, Ian, for being with us on Weekend Breakfast. Ian Kemish, their author and former Australian diplomat. Thank you.
Thank you.